All right, now we have a fireside chat about future of India powered by Web 3.0. And we have our panel members ready. But I'll call upon the moderator first, Mahesh Patil, Senior Vice President, Information Technology, Axis Bank. Please put your hands together for him. And we have two panel members, Rahul Mishra, Head of Web 3.0 Initiatives, Shemaroo Entertainment Limited. Please put your hands together for him as well. Ajay PV, Director and Head, Flipkart Labs. Thank you. So please take the seats. And moderator Mahesh Patil, all over to you, sir. Thank you so much for being here. And panel members, all the best.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you can hear, right? Do you want to do the mic check?
Yeah, mic check, working. Yeah.
All right. So, so to begin with, I mean, it's always nice to be part of such nice events, more informative, and so to begin with, actually, when I walked into this Hyatt today morning, sometime back, and then in the lobby, I was just trying to look for the directions because that's the most human thing to do, right? Look for directions where the event is and where do I need to head. And then the signboard in the lobby contained only details about the wedding that is conducted like on the other side. It did not mention anything about this event. So, I mean, of course, I was confused that have I reached the right venue because the other Hyatt is like too far away, right? I mean, I was wondering. So, just to set the context, actually, so while we are talking about the Web 3.0 and blockchain, the ultimate testimony of any buzzword, technology, jargon to have a future is how well it gets adopted by the masses, by the Aam Janta. And then perhaps we are all Indians, right? Unless if Ajay is getting married and if Rahul and I don't dance in his barat, what's the point? Will this...
Already married.
Okay, fine. And yeah, I mean, there is no second chance perhaps. So fine, I'll use some other example. But then, will weddings become like a commonplace in metaverse or not eventually? Because that's where the Web 3.0 and the blockchain is supposed to lead to, right? So yeah, I mean, let's try and perhaps find some such answers in today's fireside chat. So to begin with, I mean, just to set the context, there was a web. So how many people here still have that sound in their head of the dial-up modems? Early or late 90s, perhaps. Very few. So probably I'll skip the punchline I was going to use on that because a lot of people don't even know what the dial-up modems were. But then that is where the web started. Like static pages, shell account, ugly-looking pages, but it was like a lot of information, right? So we were still hungry on. We started getting nurtured on that information that we used to get out of it. Then came suddenly. So it was all web. And then suddenly people started calling Web 2.0 because suddenly there was like a mobile devices, there were responsive pages, a lot of fancy logos, a lot of imagery and all of that. But then comes early 2010s and then suddenly we started talking about the Web 3.0 because a lot more started getting, every common man started using a jargon like cloud, app stores, I don't know what, I mean, maybe a lot of jargon that started getting used in terms of like, this defines Web 2. So nothing of Web 2.0 is good. We need to move on to Web 3.0. And PaaS, SaaS, IoT, mobile devices, a lot more advanced mobile devices, the kind of fancy servers that used to have a sort of a RAM, that sort of a RAM we have on our mobile phones nowadays. So a lot of that started getting into the Web 3.2. Along with that comes blockchain, perhaps again around similar time. And then that started talking about the art, royalties, big government, big data, a lot of such things. So like Web 3.0 and blockchain, perhaps the kind of jargon used to describe each, there is not much difference in that. So to begin with, perhaps, let's try and get an understanding of what defines this, because the definitions are pretty loose, and then perhaps it's more apt to understand a term before we start talking about more about that term. So Ajay, what's your take on the definition of, say, Web 3.0 and blockchain in that sense?
Sure, thanks Mahesh. I think, I'm sure a lot of people, I was just going through the agenda for yesterday as well. all of you have gone through distributed ledger technology, blockchain as a technology in detail. So blockchain is a core technology that helps you achieve decentralization. Anything that's today available is on a centralized network, it's a centralized database. Blockchain works on a decentralized database, which means one entity or one server doesn't hold all the data. It's completely decentralized, and I'm sure you have understood the technology over the last few days. Now, like you said, web has evolved in itself from being a static, read-only, I'll passively consume content, to now I'll actively involve with it, smart applications built on top of it, social media applications, browsers, and all of it, which makes web more powerful today. To then, I think it's a little going back, according to me, in terms of the web has got so powerful today that the power lies in the hands of few people and few entities. And that's where I think the society works in this whole circle of life, that how do we keep balancing, and that's where Web 3.0 with blockchain started emerging, because blockchain is that technology which helps you decentralize. The core tenets of blockchain is on privacy, security, decentralization, permissionless, trustless, and hence I think Web 3.0 has evolved, and that's probably my definition as well, on a new evolution of internet, not from more of a capability or technology advancement standpoint, but more from a how do we make this decentralized, how do we not have one source of failure where one entity or person gets so powerful that they can start manipulating data. And I can go on and on about how social media applications have probably influenced political outcomes, to then frauds and scams that have been committed as recent as what we're seeing in stock exchanges and all of that. So I think at some point the society started believing, and from a technology standpoint, that can there be a technology that decentralizes the internet? And that's all probably the future of internet in Web 3.0 is all about. So there are more tenets to it, like privacy. How do you retain? Probably we're all exposed to these ads that we get, and we start wondering, are people tracking our microphones? Are they tracking our location? So I think getting more control about what you want to share, what you don't want to, and then ensuring that it's a trustless ecosystem, which means you trust technology more than entities and persons. So that's where Web 3.0 is evolving.
So talk about political outcome. Yeah, Trump is back on Twitter. I mean, a lot remains to be seen now. So Rahul, what's your take on the definition part of it?
I think, couldn't sort of pretty well summarize, Ajay. I think it's pretty much bang on. That's what, we totally believe that Web3 is doing. It's all about decentralization. The only layer I'll add in here is the incentive for consumers. I think that's the, and I speak from a media and entertainment background. Everybody is creating content now. We're not the only ones doing it. But every time you create content, what is your incentive? You're not getting anything in return for both, actually, for consuming and taking part in the creation process. That's a very interesting layer which Web3 is opening up. And just a quick, I'm just going to step back 60 years, which is when Shemaroo was founded. So we're essentially a Bollywood media company. We are one of the largest right holders of Bollywood films, 4,000 Bollywood films, and across various, such content in languages and genres. And we run, TV channels and OTT platforms. We've seen Web -1, Web 0, Web 1, Web 2, and now getting into the Web 3 space. So from a very, I'm not a coder. I don't understand, Java, Python, anything. I see it more just as where the consumers are moving. What is going to happen when the internet changes? And my definition of from a very media and entertainment consumer lens, blockchain or Web3 has two main definitions. What will blockchain enable for businesses? For example, for an entertainment company like us, how do we monetize when Web3 and blockchain becomes popular? NFTs, for example, is the first obvious step which comes to our mind. Can we distribute content through blockchain, which essentially makes it more easy and accessible for people? That's one part of the pillar. And the second opportunity, which for some reason has been clubbed with Web3, is the immersive technology. It can actually stand aside of blockchain as well, but right now it's clubbed together. And within that immersive technology, we are excited about, I think, a new form of entertainment. It's not even describable in words, but when you actually start to experience, volumetric, we were talking about it earlier, when you actually see content, you are immersed fully in, I think that's going to unveil a new way of consuming entertainment, live events, etc., etc. And so those are two parts I'm excited about within Web3. One is the blockchain application for monetization, and second is what does the future of entertainment mean in immersive?
Sure.
I think I'll just add on to what Rahul said, right? I think it's very interesting because I saw the previous topic was also about metaverse, so it's important for audience to understand. And like Rahul rightly said, metaverse as a word, like he said, was coined way back. Immersive technologies or virtual reality, it's more about, can you get an alternate way to experience life, right? Through immersion, and you're being inside an environment which is artificially created and all of it. So that has a parallel track. But what's happening now is, I think, and metaverse existed even before blockchain started and before Bitcoin and all of that was invented, right? So I think the way all of these are converging, metaverse is that one single open universal or an parallel universe where you can probably go have digital humans, avatars, interact with digital elements and feel as if it's in reality. Of course, hardware makes it easier.
Right.
Virtual reality itself is not metaverse. Virtual reality or VR headsets are one way for you to experience metaverse. And then this whole decentralization, privacy, trustless, and blockchain and all of it in Web3. But all of it is coming together, right? And one great example is Decentraland and all of them, where if you are in probably a immersive experience, you again don't want the same problem of one entity controlling everything. Now the assets used in metaverse is all virtual, 3D.
Right.
You don't want them to be static assets, you want them to be NFTs, which is running on blockchain technology, which is a core principle, one of the core principles of Web3, because then you can have ownership of the asset, you can distribute it, and then the economy in which it will run will be through tokens, right? There's tokenomics in that. So I think that's where I see both of these coming together. Sure. It should not be a force fit. These are two parallel technological advancements, but I think in terms of offering a holistic solution, they're coming together today.
So coming on to what this, forget about all the jargons, but then there is core technology at the base of it, right? So while the mobile devices that we use nowadays are like getting more and more powerful, like compared to like a Nokia, which was like you could throw and kill somebody by that back in the time, to the fancy devices that we have today. So what's your take on in terms of the hardware or perhaps the underlying technology that on which Web 3.0 and perhaps blockchain and all these things run today, that reaching the masses? So what's your take on that? Because it requires like some heavy duty processing, right, at the back of it. So from that to taking it to masses, how do you see it?
Got it. No, I think very valid question, something that has always been a question mark on the scalability of these technologies. This is great, but is it there for 1 billion users to start using it, right? And again, I'll touch upon it in both contexts, the Web3 and the whole immersive and metaverse or VR, AR standpoint as well, because the technology required to scale both are very different. Blockchain, of course, I think it requires, because you're not maintaining one node or one server, one source of truth, it's decentralized. The compute it's basically, you instead of making one entry in a database, you're making thousands of entries just so that it's distributed across the database. And that's where, there is an evolution in terms of model there. It's not more of hardware, because hardware cannot, we all know about a lot of these big room-sized machines put when, Bitcoin and all of this started, so people wanted to mine it. So that's more of proof of work. Proof of work is one way of maintaining a blockchain,
right.
And that is very, very compute intensive. That's secure, but again, that's how Bitcoin started, and it's very compute intensive. There is no way proof of work can scale to beyond. Today we're talking about a few millions of users, and it's not able to scale. That's when things like proof of stake as a model is, it's a new model in which you can run a blockchain in itself, where instead of everybody computing a cryptographic puzzle which requires huge amount of data and the ones who solves the fastest gets the put it, it's more about staking. The ones who stakes the most, you get it. So it's more of how the model of blockchain runs. And then there are scaling technologies today built on zero knowledge and all of it. It's a very advanced technological concept in blockchain, but you should probably read about it more on zero knowledge and other things, and the way in which it will be scaled to infinite scale.
Sure.
So there are scaling solutions like L2, L3s, which are side chains. Just like any other server architecture, in blockchain also there's L1, L2, and main chain, side chain, and then there is zero knowledge coming in. So I think all of these are models through which it will hit scale. Are we at a scale today where it can reach billion users? Definitely not. Because there is a blockchain, trilemma that they put: scalability, security, and decentralization. You can't achieve all three today, right? You try to achieve one or two, then the other one breaks.
Right.
So I think that's where I think the technology is advancing to figure out how can a blockchain be as secure as possible, as decentralized as possible, and also as scalable as possible. In contrast, the whole metaverse, the VR side of things is where I think scalability, that's where a lot of compute is required, because you're now rendering an entire alternate life or a universe in 3D in real life, right? It's huge compute. And if you try to reduce the compute, it will start looking, it's not looking like reality, right? It's looking artificial. So there are technologies which, render it in the cloud and then stream it. And you have to give it, like you said, the Nokia phones to now.
Right.
I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this Moore's law. Every year the amount of semiconductors that you can put in 1 millimeter of a chip is increasing, and hence the compute is increasing.
Right.
But did you know that for the last 4 or 5 years, Moore's law has stopped to exist? It's not valid anymore.
Right.
You can't make this phone any more powerful with this form factor. It needs to keep growing in size, right? So that's where I think compute is the biggest challenge, which is restricting these VR headsets to come on to the masses. Like a lot of people are wearing spectacles today. In 10 years, all of what I'm talking about, immersive, metaverse that Rahul spoke about, it is possible in one small form factor of a glass that all of us are wearing. That is where a lot of innovation in compute needs to be done, not solved yet. But there are advancements being made by a lot of companies, chipsets, Qualcomm, Apple also doing it.
Right.
And that's a different kind of scaling required to make VR headsets smaller, compact, cheaper, so that we can all use it in an easy manner.
So, not just talking about the underlying technology, Rahul, you are part of entertainment industry, and that's always on the forefront when it comes to adoption by masses, right? How do you see, that you getting either limited or riding on it, taking it to masses when it comes to immersive experience? Not even let's talk about immersive technology, but in like immersive experiences. So, based on like what just Ajay mentioned in terms of like limitation on the underlying hardware. But then how do you see that going to the masses?
Yeah, I think very valid. I think the question is about when will all of this be used by consumers?
Right.
Blockchain technology, to a large extent, people are already using. They don't know they're using it.
Right.
Consumers don't really care about what's the underlying technology. They just want to get something which is faster, better, more secures privacy, etc. But when it comes to I just want to recap. I think Jan is when I think the gentleman spoke about the Citibank report of, sir spoke about $13 trillion economy. That's when my boss called me. He says, why are we not here? There's $13 trillion to be made. I said, wow, this looks very interesting. I dug a little bit deeper on the data. What the Citibank report actually speaks about is it captures most of your offline activities, the industry of your offline activity moving to metaverse. Now, will that happen? Maybe during the COVID period, we all felt it's going to happen. But now again, we are here talking to each other. Yeah. We're not. So there will be a growth in the metaverse, for sure. But will it be a $13 trillion business? We will know in times to come. Yes, technology is one certainly big concern, and computing power is the second one. And I can give you an example. So Shemaroo launched a theater we were the first company to launch a theater in Decentraland. I'm sure none of you have heard of it, but all the Web3 journalists heard of it. They all called me and they said, oh wow, Decentraland with theater, we can watch movies in metaverse. And I said, yeah, please, you should watch. So the first screening we did, we had close to 1,200 engagements on Decentraland. I don't know if you guys have used Decentraland. It's a metaverse platform. You can't do it through your mobile. You have to do it through your laptop or your PC. And you enter the theater, you enter the screen, and you watch the movie. The second screening we did, the number dropped to close to 100. And we continue to screen there, and the numbers are minuscule. A few, maybe like 10, 12 people end up to watch a movie in the Decentraland. I think one of the main reasons currently is obviously computing. Second is the experience.
Right.
For somebody to really, really experience metaverse, I think the opportunity of immersive hardware becomes fairly important.
Right.
And then we are trying to now think, okay, fine, we get the hardware across to people, but where is the content? अभी तो आप सब 2D में देख रहे हैं, अभी आप suddenly, how will you be part of the story? How will you walk around the actor? How will, with Rohit Shetty's Scorpio going up in the air, how will I be on that angle, or the left angle, top angle? So we're trying to resolve those. To be fair, there is a lot of work happening, not only in India, but actually globally. And a few Indian companies are already looking at volumetric production for content, mixed with AI as well. So it's not just limited to what you can see, you can interact and you can keep building on that as well. So that's the level of content creation which is happening. Is the hardware there as yet? No. We've not as yet come across, and we've been talking to a few companies already, which is giving us that experience. But we will start now so that in the next 6 months to a year, we are at least ahead of the curve when it comes to giving that experience to consumers. And we are confident that if we're able to bring in that experience to consumers, metaverse adoption will become much faster. So gaming and entertainment, I feel, are two industries which will make metaverse a large, not a billion phenomena, but say a couple of million phenomena in India for sure.
All right, so I mean, interesting, right? Because entertainment is always on the forefront. So the day people can start claiming I was right there when Gabbar chopped off Thakur's hands, perhaps will be the day to be seen in the
You
future,
could chop
perhaps.
off Thakur's hands. That's the power of
Right.
immersive now.
Sure. So talking again on the Web 3.0 and blockchain, so Ajay, what do you see as that like a very interesting example happening out there in the industry right now? Not necessarily limited to your industry or domain, but that you find pretty impressive.
Got it. No, I think that's where it's a, I was talking earlier as well, right? It's a little chicken and egg problem. I think you need industry leaders to take a leap of faith and creating these use cases, and then probably adoption slowly happening, right? It's not going to happen where everybody starts adopting and then the big enterprises, brands, companies doing, getting pressured that we need to do something. It's not going to happen. It always requires few early believers to pioneer it and do it, right? Few examples you must have been seeing in the internet as well. In fact, yesterday, Starbucks has launched their entire loyalty program called Odyssey on the blockchain. Now, they announced it a few months back, but yesterday the beta is live, which means Starbucks Odyssey is one of the most reputed. 25 to 27 million users in US use that.
Right.
And now they're putting it on blockchain because they believe that has become such a big entity brand. They don't want to subscribe to this phenomenon of, okay, what you own as loyalty points or that asset needs to be tokenized. It needs to be on decentralized network so that, Starbucks is not the only entity controlling it. And then integrations become easier as well. There is a lot of other side benefits of putting it on the blockchain because otherwise the loyalty points are consumed, got within the ecosystem and then consumed within the ecosystem. With this now you get it within the ecosystem, but you can burn it across everywhere as well. So loyalty is actually picking up a lot of thing with Web 2 companies in itself, where they're looking at blockchain as not a force fit.
Right.
I just don't want to put Starbucks in a VR headset. That
Right.
seems to be like a VR.
Right.
That seems to be a force fit, right? You don't want to probably go every day in a Starbucks VR headset and drink virtual coffee.
Right.
But probably loyalty points on blockchain, I think gives a lot of power to my hands as a user, and that's what is going. Meta recently put out the entire NFTs as well. Meta is look at social media platforms today, right? And I think I'm so glad that Shemaroo and other entities, companies like that are looking at it, because today the power is centralized within the centralized entity, especially in art, music, entertainment space, right? And I'm sure you are also in a dilemma of, sometimes things work, sometimes things don't work, and you want to probably reap the rewards when it works, because you're taking the risk of things when it doesn't work as well. What if this can be, given to the content creators in itself? And social media platforms today are places where content can go viral, content economy is so much grown there,
Right.
but are people getting the benefit of it? Probably not. And that's where, NFTs and other things can help, because you own the asset, and
Right.
then if it gets popular and viral, as a creator, you get to continue to get creator royalty for your entire lifetime, right? So I think glad to see Meta again putting it up, because it shakes up their business model.
Right.
It probably doesn't work for them short term, but in long term, hopefully it works for them. So these are few notable couple of examples that's happening
But
there.
what is your personal take in terms of Starbucks putting their loyalty program onto blockchain? I mean, what is the practicality of it? I mean, does it really need to be on the decentralized this thing? Those are just loyalty points at the end of the day, right?
Again, it all takes probably one issue where you see a loyalty point, and then you suddenly see it disappearing out of your program wallet because, or your Starbucks app, because you didn't know that expiry was near, or there's some terms and conditions you're not aware of. So I think there's a lot of trust again with these central entities, right? It's arguable. I'm probably not going to argue, is Starbucks a reputed brand you can trust or not? But it's about, I think, stepping back and looking at it as a black box.
Right.
I'm not going to trust anyone but for the code. Code is law. And that's what in Web3, it's a famous statement that code is law, right? I think nobody can touch the code and
Interesting. So trust factor is something out of which this whole blockchain, the cell of the blockchain was basis this trust factor, right? I mean, perhaps I'm from the banking domain right now, and then there is a lot that is happening, but then there is nothing out there which is already there. Perhaps I'm not sure. Like if Union Bank is trying out something on the real, where the real money lies, perhaps. But then when it comes to trust, I mean, of course, everybody trusts the entertainment industry without any questions asked. What is your take, or rather example that you would like to quote out in the industry, anywhere in the world, that you find pretty impressive in terms of, impressive and immersive perhaps, in terms of Web 3.2 and blockchain?
Sure. I think before I answer that, I hope cred goes to blockchain because I have a lot of points there. I don't know what to do with them.
We have a rich man here.
And that's also ease of integration.
Everybody gets a lot of points. It's not me. Everybody gets a lot of points in cred. But I think just to add to that, the Starbucks points, once tokenized and has an interoperability with other tokens, that's the magic. You can buy a Delta Airline ticket with your Starbucks point. Right. That's the fun. And I think most of us don't use the points. So I'm actually very happy that this has happened in the industry. It's great. When it comes to the entertainment industry, there are a couple of places where blockchain is really helping us. One is on the music side. We all have heard about music NFTs launching, and yes, Warner Brothers announced a platform 2 days ago with Polygon. Now, essentially, it also brings out a lot of artists who have not been. So, I can do a crash course on media entertainment, but there's a lot of middlemen, a lot of syndication companies, and the actual revenue which comes to the creator is not as high. So the fact is that, and I think that's what blockchain is trying to resolve. Sure. Can creators monetize content and entertainment on their own? It's already happening. A couple of Indian startups are already doing that. That's number one. Second is, even for companies like us who, we run vast content distribution ecosystems across various players in the globe, where is the royalty getting captured? Are we missing out? Right. So for example, I have syndicated a content to a large OTT player globally, and my rights are over.
Sure.
But that content is still lying there on that platform.
Right.
Now blockchain will ensure at all times that I'm still getting rewarded for that, right, or it's off that particular platform.
Sure.
So a couple of use cases already happening on building trust for entertainment. I think more on the creator side, that's going to be exciting for us. Yeah.
Rahul, you already mentioned like one of the theater experiences that Shemaroo has been like trying to create, and then the interaction on that. So question to you, Ajay. I mean, what is, so of course, Flipkart is the e-commerce, and e-commerce has a lot of such practical aspects where Web 3.2 and blockchain can be showcased, right? What is happening on Flipkart? And flippers, I mean, everybody, perhaps most of us might have seen, and then a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity. So what is the way ahead, or what is cooking out there?
Sure, I think e-commerce in itself I feel as a great fit here. I sold my company, an augmented reality company, 𝐆𝐫𝐚𝐧𝐝 to Flipkart, and that's when Flipkart's journey into AR, VR, 3D, metaverse, Web3, now all of it started. We're looking again at two fragments of it. One is, we all love e-commerce for the convenience, the discounts, and ease of getting thousands of options in just one click of a button. But experience is still limited to 2D. You're not able to see exactly how it looks. So that's where we got started with by integrating augmented reality, which is one step towards a metaverse, right? It's not a metaverse in itself, but you're able to now see a furniture, a shoe on yourself, a furniture in your room, wearing spectacles on your face and seeing how exactly it looks. Sure. Bridging offline to online is where we have got started. And today we are one of the largest deployments of 3D and augmented reality in a single commerce platform. So it's scaled up massively, and there are people today, we have data to suggest that if 3D and AR is not present for a product, they tend to not buy that today, right? So we've been able to create the behavior. Second, I think, is entirely now taking this to an immersive experience in itself. Can we mimic an entire offline shopping experience, which was our first attempt at flippers? I definitely think there's a lot more to be done. And Flipverse was more not an announcement that we have cracked it, but it's an announcement that Flipkart intends to participate in the metaverse. And we believe the future of shopping retail is going to be in the metaverse.
Sure.
So can we not, yes, there are problems. And that's why probably Decentral and Shemaroo is probably not seeing a lot of people. And we want to be early in the game because we want to build the nuts and bolts that are required to make it happen. And the only way we can do it is probably get our hands dirty with it. So we have a tons of user data on what was challenging, how it can get better. So you can expect a lot of multiple iterations of Flipverse coming in, which will make experiencing commerce in a metaverse experience better. On the parallel, I think with NFTs and others, again, brand, Flipkart is nothing but a ecosystem of multiple brands coming together, right? So we want to offer brands something like probably better than what they get today.
Sure.
And today, a transaction between brands and consumer is very transactional, right? A user goes to Flipkart product page, buys something, done, over. Can we create a more community between the brands and them on blockchain through NFTs, which give them token-gated access? Or can we build this whole brand loyalty program like what Starbucks has done through blockchain? So what you get on Flipkart can be probably used across as well. Flipkart has a loyalty program called Super Coins, but that's again centralized, right? So can we do that?
Right.
That's where a lot of I think there are at least 4 to 5 areas like this,
Sure.
which were picked as areas that we'll work on, and you will see more of this coming out. I know we have announced a center of excellence with Polygon as well, which is the best, the largest scale,
The best, perhaps.
layer 2 solution out there. So I think that will help us advance a lot of these technology solutions for redefining e-commerce and retail on Web3 and Metaverse.
Cool. I think that should summarize sort of what our individual takes are on the Web 3.0 and blockchain. And perhaps, yeah, going back to the example that I started with, perhaps like the Indians conducting their weddings in the metaverse, and perhaps Shemaroo monetizing the content being played in the barats and shopping happening on Flipkart, perhaps like is the epitome of the kind of example we can come up with, at least in Indian scenario. So that's about it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, gentlemen.